Barnes? Nobody told me Rick Barnes was coming on. It's delightful to see Rick Barnes. Let me talk to Rick Barnes here for a second. Rick Barnes has been doing this for about 40 years, kicking ass. His team is in the top 10 again, as it almost always is. And thank you, Rick, for joining us. Tennessee is 22-5 on the season. Is coming off a victory at Texas A&M. And I'm just curious, before we get started here, Coach, what kind of appetite do you have for this particular give and take where you have to come on here and sell your basketball team after 38 years and say all the things about that maybe are boring to you, that you'd rather be at practice and not talking to media members about?
Well, you're right on it. I'd rather be in practice. You really are. I'd rather be in. I would much rather do that. But, as you know, we owe it to the program and we owe it to our fans to get out there and talk about our program. And we're proud of what we've been able to do here the last 10 years. But this time of year, you do get so focused in on your team. And, from game to game, how hard this league is. I mean, it's ridiculous what this league has become this year. But it is what it is, and you've got to be ready to play. Our preparation, as soon as I get done with you, we'll go in and start our film session for today and then get ready for LSU. Then we got a late game there tomorrow night, which it's tough when you play those 9:00 games on the road, but it is what it is. And then we come back, and we were supposed to play Alabama at 12 o'clock on Saturday, but they moved that back to 4. So whatever comes your way this time of year, you just have to do it.
Is there a correct way for me to do this in order to make this more fun for you than the average interview? What is the thing? What are the topics that I need to bring up that would be in the Barnes wheelhouse? Because he doesn't want to talk about that much about Tennessee basketball. He wants to talk about the delicious yogurt that he was having right before he came on here, because he's all about fuel efficiencies when it comes to making juggernauts.
Well, since you're talking about fuel efficiency, we can talk about NASCAR. I love NASCAR. I'm a big NASCAR fan.
Same.
Well, what did you think about that caution finish? That was terrible.
Yeah, I'm not into that rule. I'm not into that one. I think they ought to have to race it all the way to the finish line. And the last week, the Daytona race, it must be a big sport because they stayed on the air from about 12 o'clock till 10 o'clock that night because of rain delays and all this and all that. But yeah, I grew up in Hickory, North Carolina, where NASCAR started over in that area, and at a young age, my brothers and I, we'd find a way to get to Hickory Speedway or Lenore Burke Antioch Speedway, and we'd go to a race on Friday or Saturday night. And my first love was NASCAR, but then I fell in love with the New York Yankees, and baseball is probably my second love. But I don't mind talking about basketball because it's changed so much in my over 40 years in the business. And
no, you opened the NASCAR door now, my friend. Now we're talking NASCAR.
You did, but also you mentioned that you're a Yankee fan, so I would love your opinion on the policy reversal from the New York Yankees that well-groomed beards are now allowed.
Well, I haven't kept up with anything other than when I talk about the Yankees, I'm talking about 1963, 64.
Good old days.
There you go. They have Paul Goldschmidt now.
That's because you know what? To be honest with you, there's only three TV stations on TV at the time, and for whatever reason, the Yankees were on every Saturday and playing somebody. But I was Coach Knight gave me a book one time because he was an avid reader, and one of the books he gave me, he thought it was one of the greatest sport books he said ever read, was The Summer of '49. Talking about the rivalry with the Red Sox and the Yankees. And I would recommend anybody that loves sports and wants to get a history of announcers and everybody in the game, that is a incredible book to read by David Halberstam, The Summer of '49.
It is. Halberstam, a great author. What would you regard as the greatest of the sports things that you have read? I am assuming that you're always looking for whether it's leadership help or self-help on how it is to get better at this. I imagine you're always searching.
Well, I go back when I first got into coaching, I knew really when I was in college, I wanted to be a coach, and I played for a really good basketball coach by the name of Bob Hodges, who still is East Carolina's all-time leading scorer. And he made us put together a coaching book. And so back then, the coaches I really dove into trying to learn everything about was Vince Lombardi. And then from there, obviously Coach Wooden was in his prime at that point in time, Dean Smith, Bob Knight. Those were the guys that I really, anything and everything I could get my hands on, I wanted to learn about them and study them. And I'll be very honest with you. Every game that I have coached, I have used something from Coach Knight and Coach Smith. Every game. When we went to A&M, we actually did some things that we hadn't done all year that Coach Knight would have been very proud of. Because when he retired, he called me one time and he said, you need to come out here to Lubbock and let me teach you how to coach basketball. That's what he said to me. And he said offensive basketball. And so I went out, spent a day with him, and we had a wonderful time. And, he's just so passionate about what he believed in. And that's what made it work, obviously. And it was as hard to guard as anything. We'd go into every game against him thinking that we were this great man-to-man team. And after 2 minutes, we'd end up going zone because we couldn't guard him. And to be honest, we had better players at every position. But he made every game so competitive. And then Coach Smith, when I was in college, I had to do a coaching book. And everything I did in that book was based on what I could find about what Coach Smith, being from North Carolina, going to school in North Carolina, we have some special situations that we used. And then when I got into coaching, I learned so much from going around with the best high school coaches, Morgan Wooten, Joe Gallagher, Stu Vetter, some coaches that were just great high school coaches that you could learn from. And to be honest with you, I really think if I stop even today trying to go back and doing some of the things and trying to continue to learn how to coach this game, I think I'd quit, because that excites me, that I know that even as long as I've been in this game, I can still learn some things about it and learn from everybody. I've learned something from everybody I've coached against, but that's what's exciting about it, because you can coach this game, play this game a lot of different ways, but I don't ever want to get stale and mundane, and so that's what I do to keep myself going. I'm always looking. And Bob McKillop has been a major influence on my career. We were together my first year in coaching when I was a volunteer, and he was a full-time coach at Davidson. He and I would go running every day, and I'd pick his brain about everything. And he's had a tremendous influence on my life.
Rick, we are going to get some more NASCAR out of you, whether you want it or not. And we also have Shot for Your Life with one of your players that we're going to play, where we're going to pin you down and we're going to make you pick one player. You're not going to be able to do this Coach Wiggle dance where you can't. We're going to force you to pick one player. But, Mike, what do you got for him on NASCAR?
Well, who's your driver? Are you loyal to a team? Are you loyal to a number or a specific driver?
I was growing up, I was a Woods Brother guy back in the day, Kel Yarborough, David Pearson, those kind of guys. And obviously I became a big Dale Earnhardt Sr. And when he passed, I obviously would love to see his son do well. Then became a Martin Truex guy. But also knowing Joe Gibbs, I pulled for his, because he was the head coach of the Washington Redskins when I was an assistant at George Mason back in the day. And I got to spend a lot of time at Redskin Park out there with a friend that knew Coach Gibbs, and so I do pull for those guys. But for some reason, I caught myself yesterday pulling for Kyle Busch. I don't know if it's because last year was the first time he hadn't won in 20 years, and but as he's getting older, and I love to see him have a great run. Like last year, I was pulling hard for Martin Truex to finish it up on a great note. But
yeah.
So this year, I think my guy is going to be Kyle Busch, and hope that he can get back where he wants to be one more time.
Were you mad at Hocevar? Because Kyle Busch certainly was. You watch that radio transmission?
Yeah. I get to guys being competitive, and I will say this to you. I've become very impressed with Michael Jordan's team. With Denny Hamlin and Bubba Wallace's mother, I think, ran track here at the University of Tennessee. So I've met Bubba, and he tries to bring his dad over to a game every year. And so I will be pulling for him, obviously, too. But, yeah, some of those guys, I wish I could be back in the day, like when Richard Petty, they were the first family, I think, that had multiple cars, and one of them went out and was a blocker. I'd like to be a blocker. I don't think I'm good enough to win, but I could definitely wreck somebody.
Well, wait a minute. So,
yeah.
So could you have been a driver? Like, how close were you to being a driver? Or was it just something you were dreaming about? Or did you actually do anything to start down that path before basketball?
No, I dreamed about it. I can remember sitting in the third and fourth grade getting in trouble because I'd always draw race cars. My teacher would come by and I'm not doing the schoolwork, and I'd be trying to draw different race cars and love trying to put these creative numbers on them and all this and all that. But
you failed at your dreams. You failed at your dreams. You did not succeed.
I did get a chance to drive the pace car over at Bristol when I first got here, and I'd ask somebody, I said, "What's the fastest this car has ever gone around this track?" And they said, Carl Edwards took it around the track at 97 miles an hour over there. It's a small track. I said, well, I'm going to beat that. I got it to 75, and I had enough. So I could have done it.
Before we get you out of here, Coach, Tony's got a game for you. How many shot for your life, one shot for your life, picking only from among the 38 years of players Rick Barnes has coached?
That's right, and I've narrowed it down to the guys that he's put in the NBA, too, because sometimes there's people that you haven't heard of that Coach would bring back from, like, 1991. So this is going to be, Coach, NBA players that you've coached in college, shot for your life. So you can only pick one when I give you these sets of players. You ready?
Okay.
All right, Grant Williams or Avery Bradley, shot for your life.
Grant Williams.
You're dead.
PJ Tucker or LaMarcus Aldridge?
Oh, man. Are you saying, when you say shot for my life, you
Shot
mean
for your
win a
life,
game?
Coach. Yeah. They got the ball in their
Your
hands.
life is
They're
on
going to
the
shoot
line.
it. And
Your
you're
life's on the line.
Is it in the corner?
Coach, the clarification's
Well,
unnecessary.
they gotta make a
It's for your,
shot.
it's for your life.
Get it wrong, you're joining Dale Senior.
Hey, I love LaMarcus Aldridge, but PJ Tucker, second best college scorer I've ever coached.
Wow.
Woo!
Wow. Okay.
First.
Real Hoopers, no. First is KD, obviously, Dan. Come on. What are we doing here? All right.
Aldridge was
This
a
one's
good
going to be
scorer.
tough because neither were known. Well, one's known for his shooting, but one wasn't. Dexter Pittman, Miami Heat legend, or Miles Turner?
Miles Turner.
That was quick. That was quick.
All right. We're going back to the old school, Dan. Greg, you'll remember some of these names. Austin Crozier or Chris Mim?
Austin Crozier.
Okay. Stretch four for his time, right, Coach?
Good college player.
DJ Augustine or Boobie Gibson?
DJ Augustine.
Did you call him Boobie, Coach, or no?
Yeah, I did. He was a great player, but DJ Augustine played with KD and had a big influence on KD too. I can't remember, could tell you how many times DJ would go over to Kevin and say, "Man, we need you to take this game over," and I'd say, "I agree with him. Take this game over."
It's good coaching. That's why you're the genius that you are.
Denny Hamlin or Kyle Larson?
Race for your life.
Denny Hamlin.
Oh, really? Well, it's a Gibbs thing.
The Intimidator or
I
the
know you
King?
think I'm crazy. I know you think I'm crazy when I say that. It's just Denny's been around a long time, and when you get to my age, you kind of like those older guys.
Yeah, better speedway racer. Do you think the speedways are too random? I'm sorry, it's your time.
It's my, thank you.
I cede my time. Yeah.
Earnhardt or Petty, Coach?
Well, you know what? I have to tell you this story. I was at Providence. Do we have time for me to tell you a story?
Yes.
For a NASCAR
Let's
story?
go.
Absolutely.
Well, here's what happens. I'm at Providence College, and I've taken the Clemson job, and I get a call one day from a guy from the Providence Journal. He says, "I'm going to ask you a quick question, kind of what you did right there, and say you can't think about it. You got to be spontaneous." He said, "If you could have dinner with any two people, who would it be?" And I said, "Billy Graham, Richard Petty." Because when I was growing up in the state of North Carolina, Billy Graham, the great evangelist, I mean, everybody knew him around the world, telling everybody about Jesus Christ. And then Richard Petty was the king, right? So
There was Christ,
as
and then
time
there
goes
was the
on, I get a
king.
call. I get a call from a guy, and he says, "Would you really like to meet Billy Graham?" And I said, "Yeah." So he's going to be in Boston at a function up there. You and your wife can come up. So we drove up there and went to a ballroom, and I didn't know how many people was going to be there. It just happened to be about 5,000 people, but they took me over to meet him, and he was in his 70s and wanting really as healthy as you know. He was getting older, but when he went up on the stage, I mean, I've never seen a guy transform himself and start talking about Jesus. And then 2 years later, I get a chance. I'm at a speedway, and the year we went to the Final Four, and Dale Jarrett, who I grew up with, and Dale's racing on NASCAR, you know, his family, and Dale invites me to the race up in Texas, and I go up there, and as we're getting ready to leave, Dale's brother is hustling us out so we can get on a helicopter to get over to the airport to get out. And I see Richard Petty standing by himself, and I go over, and I say, "I got to meet the king." I say, "I grew up really loving this guy." So I walk over there. He's eating an apple, and I'm telling him this story about
Red or green, yeah.
I'm telling Richard about it, and he looked at me and he said, "Richard Petty, Billy Graham," he said, "we're a long way apart, man." But he said, "I appreciate that." And but I did get a chance to meet him, and obviously growing up, I don't know why I wasn't a big Richard Petty fan growing up, but for some reason I loved Dale Earnhardt, and obviously like everyone involved with NASCAR, it was a sad day when he lost his life. But I admire watching Richard Petty still doing what he's doing, going to the track and doing what he does.
Rick, he was wearing the cowboy hat, obviously, when you saw him. We're going to get you on to recap Talladega, but ask him one last question before we get out of here.
Toughest for last, Coach. TJ Ford or Kevin Durant?
Wow.
No, come on.
I tell you what, you're gonna have to hang me because I'm not gonna pick between those two.
Oh, you got to pick one,
Oh.
Coach.
Hey,
You got Got to
Those
pick one.
two
Shot for your
guys-
life, coach.
Oh.
Forget how bad
Okay,
TJ was. in
I'll-
college.
Why would we hang you?
Well, because you know what? TJ Ford taught me a lot about
Excessive.
college basketball and coaching a great player. And then Kevin Durant, because of what TJ taught me when KD came in, I said, hey, man, you're going to be who you are, do what you do, because TJ Ford won 77 straight games. And one of the greatest stories in my coaching career, we're playing Oklahoma the year that Kansas, us, and Oklahoma are 1, 2, 3. We all get a number 1 seed, and we're at senior night up at Norman, and Kelvin's the coach, and we'd had some epic battles. And I get mad at Brian Boddicker. He gave up 3 straight offensive rebounds, and I called timeout. And this is when I was really emotional, and I reamed Brian Boddicker and say, hey, man, you are done. I'm not going to play any more the rest of tonight. And he goes over. I put him on the bench, and they're up 11 points. And I'm walking to the bench, and TJ walks up behind me, puts his arm around me, and said, Coach, what are you thinking right now? And I said, I think we're getting our butt kicked. And he said, do you want to win? I said, I want to win. He said, well, for us to win, you had to put Brian Boddicker back in the game. I said, TJ, you heard what I just told Brian. I told him I'm not going to play him anymore tonight. And he looked me dead in the eye and he said, Coach, you don't want to win then. So I walked right down to the bench and I said, Brian, I'm going to give you one more chance.
Whoa.
And he goes in the game, and this is a true story. In 45 seconds, he hit 3 straight threes. And we end up coming back winning the game. And when I'm walking off the court, TJ came up and he hit me so hard on the butt and looked at me and he said, you're a heck of a coach. And I wanted to hit him because he hit me so hard. I didn't know who it was. And so I learned right then and there, more than ever, when you got a guy like him, and then when Kevin came in, all I ever told Kevin Durant, we're going to help you get better at what you do, but you got to be who you are. And obviously, if you told me Kevin's going to be a Hall of Famer, I wish TJ's career could have gone different for him, but he had that neck problem. But those two guys taught me a lot about how to deal with great, great players. And in some ways, it's been a curse because those two guys love basketball.
Pick one, Barnes.
Work harder than
Pick
anybody
one,
I've
Barnes.
ever coached. When you get guys that work that hard, you expect that from everybody.
Pick one. You got to pick one, Barnes.
pick
You're
one.
not going to be a
Just
coward
Well, I said
about
what I
this.
said about TJ, but I'm going to pick KD.
There it is. Yeah, we badgered him into it. We badgered him into
I'm going to
it.
get a body on somebody.
We will not hang you.
What do you think about the 12 car's ability to come back to the field?
Well, after Talladega, we'll
Top 5
talk to Rick
finish.
Barnes. Thank you, Rick. Good
Roger
seeing
Maris
you.
or Joe Pepitone?
Okay, get out.
Raise hell, praise Dale, right,
All right,
Coach?
get out of here. Goodbye,
Thank you,
Rick.
guys.
Thank you.
Robin is, that's right, racing.
All right, stop it. All of you stop it. I lost Greg Cody in the middle of that. Greg Cody drifted off